When the poor housekeeper speaks 10 words in French, turn a Millionaire'S party upside down. Clara stood in the bustling kitchen, the sweet scent of pastries and savory hors d'oeuvres filling the air, every laugh and clink of champagne glasses from the grand hall outside a reminder of the world she belonged to only in spirit. As a dedicated housekeeper for Mr. Thompson, she often felt like a ghost drifting through the manicured lawns and lavish parties of the affluent suburb. She longed for more than this life, as every day revolved around raising her 2 children alone, making sacrifices that weighed heavy on her heart. Tonight was an extravagant affair celebrating Mr. Thompson's latest $1 million success. Clara moved quickly, wiping down surfaces, her hands busy while her thoughts wandered to dreams of better days. She yearned for the freedom and education could provide for her kids, the chance to show them a world beyond this gilded cage where she felt invisible. Despite her determination, the vibrancy of the party always emphasized her solitude in a striking way, as she caught glimpses of laughter and wealth through the beautifully illuminated windows. In the middle of the event, laughter echoed through the air like music, mixed with the rich tones of clinking glasses. Clara stepped into the grand space, mind swirling. As she collected empty plates, she overheard Mr. Thompson himself. His voice rang clear, casual disdain dripping from his words. They just don't understand how hard it is to maintain this level of success. Some people are simply born to serve. The laughter around him deepened her sense of invisibility, and for the first time, the weight of her aspirations bore down on her like a storm. She had lived by the mantra that hard work would pay off, would earn her respect. But those words felt like blades now, cutting through her resolve. Clara's heart began to pound like thunder, igniting a fire within her that pushed her into action. In that moment, she found the courage she didn't know she had. The air thickened with expectation as she approached the VIP area, her heart racing, a whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. Before she could second-guess herself, she opened her mouth and spoke, "Vous ne savez pas ce qu'ils endurent, you do not know what they endure." It came out shaky yet strong, 10 powerful words in French that reverberated through the crowd, silence swallowing the laughter whole. Guests turned, eyes widening in disbelief, the superficial veil of the party punctured, revealing the fragile humanity beneath. "Whoa!" a young partygoer exclaimed, his surprise echoing the thoughts of many. Tension rippled through the room, and Clara felt the spotlight of attention land squarely on her, igniting a sharp awareness of her own worth. Her children watched from a distance, caught in a battle between pride for their mother's bold stand and the desire to fit in with their privileged peers. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As expressions of shock flitted across the guests' faces, Clara realized she had sparked something deeper. Beliefs were being challenged, and conversations about privilege were about to unfold. Mr. Thompson's expression morphed from arrogance to confusion, his world tilted on its axis. As the buzz of chatter grew, Clara knew she had stepped into a moment that could change everything. But just as the party ricocheted into chaos, a familiar face appeared through the throng, someone she thought she left behind. A former friend turned rival, suddenly questioning not just their shared past but also what this moment could mean for their uncertain future. Clara felt a mix of dread and excitement. Would her act of defiance empower a movement, or would it unravel in ways she couldn't yet imagine? The tension danced on the edge of reality, leaving her breathless with anticipation for what came next. The room buzzed with attention Clara had never felt before. All eyes were glued to her, a mix of disbelief and intrigue painting the guests' faces. In the back, her children, Mia and Jake, stood frozen, mouths agape. Clara's heart raced, she could feel each beat reverberate in her chest, urging her forward. In that moment, her former friend, Sarah, pushed through the crowd with an attitude that screamed confrontation. Once close, Sarah's eyes narrowed, an all too familiar flash of superiority mixed with surprise. Clara?" she asked, her voice laced with sarcasm. What a bold move for a housekeeper. Clara bristled at her tone, every word dripping with disdain. But this was her moment, and she wasn't about to let Sarah's words cut her down. "I'm not just a housekeeper. I'm a mother, and it's time people recognized our struggles." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Clara's words hung in the air, grasping hold of those seeking to understand. Sarah chuckled, but the laughter felt hollow. "You're brave, I'll give you that. But do you think this will change anything?" Clara inhaled deeply, summoning every ounce of courage. Change doesn't happen in silence. For too long, we've accepted what society tells us. Well, no more. The conviction in her voice surprised her. For the first time, she felt the room shift, like the movement of a tide. Murmurs of agreement arose from unexpected corners. People Clara thought were fiercely loyal to Mr. Thompson. They began to question their own privilege, whether it be a shadow gently cast by wealth or ignorance. Clara noticed a couple of young adults in trendy suits whispering, "What if she's right?" At that moment, Mr. Thompson stepped forward, glaring at Clara. His face flushed with embarrassment and anger. He tried to regain control. "This is not the time or place, Clara," he asserted, waving a hand dismissively. But the guests were no longer looking to him, they were looking at Clara. She felt a powerful swell within, igniting something deep and transformative. "It's not just about me," she shouted, feeling the strength of her words charge the air. "It's about everyone who feels overlooked and underappreciated. We deserve to be seen." The once lavish party felt like a ticking time bomb. Some guests stepped back, leaning against the bar, whispering words of encouragement. Others looked at Mr. Thompson, their loyalties beginning to falter. The tension culminated when Jake, just old enough to understand the shift, finally moved to stand beside Clara. "Mom's right," he said, his small voice ringing clear and confident. "We need more than just a party. We need to talk about what's fair." Laughter echoed nervously, but so did the energy of genuine camaraderie. Clara felt proud, a swell of affection for her children mingling with the exhilaration bubbling within her. Was this the change she had longed for? Had her voice truly ignited a spark? Just as the audience began to lean into the conversation that was about to brew, a loud crash erupted from the far side of the room. Everyone turned as a table toppled over, glasses shattering and drinks spilling. The noise sliced through the newfound momentum, drawing everyone's eyes back to chaos. Clara's heart raced. What was happening now? Had her bravery sparked not just dialogue, but division? The gripping uncertainty twisted her stomach as she realized the consequences of her stand might go far beyond anything she had anticipated. She took a deep breath, barely able to process it all, her resolve solidified even further. There was no turning back now. What awaited on the other side of this unresolved tension was a reality she was not prepared for, but she knew was coming. In the eye of the storm, she braced herself. Her journey had begun, and there would be no hiding from the truth any longer. Would she find support among the very people she had dared to challenge? Or would the fallout prove insurmountable? Clara knew she had to stay strong, her family was counting on her. What would happen next when the ground beneath their feet began to shake? Clara's eyes widened as the crash echoed like thunder in the once cheerful room. Her heart pounded as she scanned the area, searching for the source of the commotion. The sight of a dozen guests frozen in shock made her stomach churn. A group of well-dressed men, visibly tipsy, had bumped into a table piled high with glasses, and now the floor was a war zone of sparkling shards and spilled champagne. "Is everyone okay?" she called out, instinctively moving toward the chaos, her voice loud enough to slice through the chaos. Mia and Jake rushed to her side, their expressions a mix of concern and curiosity. They, too, were caught in the whirlwind of emotions. Jake's small hand clutched Clara's tightly, tension radiating from him. Mr. Thompson stepped forward, red-faced and oozing fury. "What kind of event is this turning into?" he barked, glaring at Clara as if her very presence ignited the incident. His attempt to regain authority felt flimsy, a mere facade crumbling before Judith, an outspoken guest who had made her way to Clara's side. "Let it be, Mr. Thompson," Judith challenged, standing tall beside Clara. "We are tired of pretending. This moment is exactly what we needed." Her fiery spirit sparked murmurs of agreement from others, surprising even herself. Clara felt a rush of gratitude towards Judith, who had always been kind, but this new solidarity seemed almost miraculous. As the tension swelled, more people began to step away from Mr. Thompson, their discomfort with his anger bubbling to the surface. Clara sensed a window of opportunity and she couldn't waste it. "Can we shift the energy?" Clara asked, her voice softer yet filled with resolve. "This is a chance to rediscover our common ground. Let us talk about respect, choices, and what it means to support one another instead of wandering into hostility." The crowd, still in shock from the spill and the ensuing argument, began to whisper among themselves. Judith raised her glass, a playful grin on her face. "Let us toast to honesty. To being brave enough to speak our truth." Slowly, she coaxed other glasses into the air. Clara's chest tightened as she watched familiar faces, those once loyal to Mr. Thompson, starting to chime in. The hesitation was palpable, but the wariness seemed to melt away as people began lifting their glasses in agreement, forming a circle around Clara. "What if we really are stronger together?" someone said, a voice Clara recognized as one of the interns. "Mr. Thompson won't always be here. The wealth he carries doesn't decide our worth." The sentiments resonated like ripples on a pond, and Clara felt buoyed by their support. Hope began to blossom again, even amidst the chaos. But just as the atmosphere started to shift, the air turned heavy again as Mr. Thompson squared his shoulders, reining in everyone's attention once more. "This is a private gathering, and I won't allow my event to be overrun by resentment. This is not the time nor the place to bring up your grievances." Clara's heart sank. The resolve she had felt was now strained once more, teetering on the brink of doubt. Did they really want to risk it all again? Was this newfound solidarity strong enough to withstand the storm brewing? In that moment, she caught Jake's gaze. He looked up at her, eyes filled with trust. Instinctively, she nodded, determination washing over her. It was time to rise above fear. "If we don't speak up now, when will we?" Clara's voice rang out again, filling the room. "This is about more than an event, it's about us." And then, she took a step closer, heart pounding with urgency. "Let us turn this upside-down gathering into a chance for real change." But before she could continue, a voice from the back startled her. "You've got a lot of guts, Clara. But what if you don't know the real truth?" Fear gripped her. Who was this new challenger, and what did they mean? The room grew quiet, all eyes shifting to Clara. The tension escalated, and she felt the walls close in. What real truth lay hidden beneath the surface, and would she have the strength to face it? Clara's heart raced as her eyes darted around the room, searching for the source of that defiant voice. It belonged to a woman she recognized but didn't know well, Marie, one of the most reserved housekeepers employed by Mr. Thompson. Clara had only shared a few polite exchanges with her, never having imagined that Marie carried such weight. The air felt electric. Gregarious chatter fell to an unsettling hush as guests leaned in, eager for the confrontation that seemed inevitable. Clara took a deep breath, her feet feeling like they were glued to the floor. "Marie, please," Clara began, hoping to defuse the situation before it escalated further, but Marie didn't back down. She stepped forward with a newfound confidence that surprised even her. "What if I told you all that I know, things you don't? Things that could shake this house to its foundations?" Her voice rang clear, cutting through the tension like a hot knife through butter. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. "What do you mean?" she asked, her voice steady despite the panic bubbling inside her. Marie began, "I've seen the way Mr. Thompson conducts his business from the shadows. You think you know him? You think his wealth makes him untouchable? You're wrong. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Clara felt everyone leaning in, a collective breath held. Clara's right, Marie continued, now emboldened. This gathering is a farce, a circus of masks, she waved her hand dismissively, but I've had enough. He's built his empire on the backs of hardworking people who never get a nod of appreciation. Mr. Thompson's face darkened, anger boiling beneath the surface. You're out of line, Marie. He shouted, but his voice trembled just slightly, betraying his uncertainty. Clara's heartbeat quickened, surprised by the ache of sympathy she felt for Marie. It's not just about you or me, Mr. Thompson. It's about all of us. Every single person in this room, every single soul who serves you, diligently, without recognition, Clara exclaimed, her voice rising above the tumult. Judith, standing at Clara's side, echoed her words. People matter. And we will not sit in silence while you dictate our worth. The crowd buzzed, voices intermingling, some rallying behind Clara and Marie, while others stood in shocked disbelief. Kids pressed close to their parents, sensing the growing intensity. Jake's small fingers squeezed Clara's tight as he shifted nervously, he looked to her for guidance. She offered a small, reassuring nod, letting him know she was still anchored in this storm. Marie, you're risking everything, Clara said, heart racing. What do you know? With the crowd encircling them, Marie took a deep breath. I know the truth about those renovations, Clara. Hidden costs, unpaid wages, and threats so far removed from what you think a man like Mr. Thompson is capable of. Her voice trembled with a mixture of fear and resolve. You think it's just about respect? It's about survival for many of us who can't speak up. The audience absorbed her words, an emotional wave sweeping through. Clara felt the gravity of the moment pressing down, and for a brief second, it felt like the walls of the luxurious venue might collapse under the weight of their unacknowledged truths to mar. Thompson's face twisted with disbelief, eyes darting around as if searching for an ally among the stunned guests. But no one came forward. Clara felt the knot in her stomach loosening just slightly, perhaps they could stir real change. But uncertainty lingered, remnants of fear knitting back together. Had they crossed a line too far? Would revealing deeper truths lead to more hurt than healing? Marie stepped closer to Clara, her voice low and urgent. Are you ready for the real truth? Are you ready to face the consequences? Clara's eyes widened. What could possibly be the cost? She opened her mouth to answer, but the sound of approaching footsteps interrupted her. Panic lodged in her throat, and the moment hung suspended in the air. Clara could feel the tides shift, and the crowd surged with need for resolution. What was about to happen next, and would they still have courage when the truth was finally laid bare? Clara's heart pounded as the footsteps grew louder. The tension was palpable, woven tightly with dread and anticipation. Eyes darted toward the entrance, where a tall figure entered the room. Detective Harper, a man known for enforcing a kind of order that tended to shred moments like this into chaos. Mr. Thompson's expression tightened. What are you doing here? He demanded, his voice barely masking the unease that crept into his being. Harper's gaze swept over the crowd, then locked onto Marie. I was tipped off about a gathering that might skirt the law, he said, his tone official but not without a glimmer of intrigue. What's this about unpaid wages? Clara felt the heat of his gaze shift to her. It dawned on her that this was the moment they had unintentionally called upon the confrontation of truth. She glanced at Marie, who stood resolute, unyielding in her conviction. Marie stepped forward, unflinching. Everything, she declared with fierce clarity, and in that very instant, the room became silent again. This isn't just a party, it's a stage where silence gives us a voice of complicity. We deserve better. Harper furrowed his brow, caught off guard by the intensity of Marie's assertion. He seemed to weigh the gravity of her words, tossing them around in his mind like marbles on a scale. The guests were electric, some nodding, others frozen. Clara's mind raced. Was Detective Harper truly the ally they hoped for? Or was he just another cog in Mr. Thompson's machinery? Before she could ask, the detective spoke again. People are talking. People who didn't have the courage to reveal what they've seen. His eyes narrowed. I've been gathering stories, whispers of this man who promises luxury while stealing from those who toil for it. Mr. Thompson puffed up, defiance oozing from his every pore. You're out of your depth, Harper. Am I? The detective shot back, his voice steady, his jaw clenching slightly. I just need one person to step forward, one person to tell the truth. A wave of fear rippled through the crowd. Clara glanced at Judith, whose face wore a mixture of hope and anxiety. This was bigger than any of them had prepared for. The stakes were higher than a mere evening of gossip. Their lives were intertwined and many had so much to lose. Clara, you have to speak. You know enough. Judith urged, her voice barely above a whisper. Could she betray her own fear? Clara took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of Jake's small hand. Was it time to step into the light? She could already sense the weight of a decision that could alter everything, the weight of truth that hung on the edge of spoken words. Trembling, Clara realized she stood at the precipice. This isn't just about me, she whispered, but it felt like a launch pad for something larger. Before she could shout her truth, the doors to the venue swung open again, revealing a tall figure moving rapidly toward them, face obscured by shadows. The entire room shifted, waiting for clarity, for answers. Something's coming. Something big, Clara thought, her heart hammering in her chest. Who was this new arrival? And would they bring the truth to light, or plunge the moment into darkness? The figure stepped into the light, and Clara's breath caught in her throat. It was Jacqueline, the new housekeeper, barely 2 months into her role at Thompson's estate. Clara had barely exchanged more than a few pleasantries with her, but now, she stood there, shoulders squared, chin lifted slightly. Whispers cascaded through the crowd like a wave, the air thick with uncertainty and curiosity. Jacqueline's eyes were sharp and fierce, shining with a determination Clara had never seen in her before. For a moment, the party atmosphere cracked, replaced by the weight of an inexplicable tension. What do you want? Mr. Thompson barked, his bravado dwindling as his gaze fell on the young woman who had dared to interrupt his careful play of power. Jacqueline opened her mouth, but the words came tumbling out like marbles spilled from a bag. I know things, about the books. About the missing funds. She took a step forward, her body a vessel of fragile courage. Clara squeezed Jake's hand tighter, adrenaline coursing through her veins. Could this be the break they needed? Was this the moment everything shifted? Missing funds? Harper echoed, excitement lacing his voice. What do you mean? Are you prepared to provide evidence? Jacqueline hesitated for just a heartbeat, fears of losing her job apparent on her face. I've tidied your office, Mr. Thompson, she replied, her voice gaining strength with every word. I saw the papers payments made that didn't match the records. Payments to people who don't even work here. The crowd inhaled sharply, a collective gasp rushing through them. All eyes turned to Mr. Thompson, whose face paled. The facade he had so carefully cultivated was beginning to crack. Those are personal dealings. He protested, waving a dismissive hand. This is nonsense. You are just a housekeeper, and you have no idea what you're talking about. But Jacqueline stood her ground. And yet, I saw names and numbers. I know where the money's gone. In that moment, Clara felt the tables tilting. She was on the edge of something big, something that could redefine their struggle against Thompson. If Detective Harper believed Jacqueline, they could assert their claims and challenge Mr. Thompson's authority. Clara stepped forward, her voice steady but gentle. You have to testify. You have the right to be heard. We'll stand with you. Judith nodded fiercely, raising her fist slowly in solidarity. Together, we can't be silenced. Attempting to dismiss the growing momentum, Mr. Thompson's face turned from shock to anger. You're all making a mistake. This will ruin you. But Clara felt the energy from the crowd shift, a tide pulling them together. They were no longer just individual voices, they were a collective force. Jacqueline, Harper leaned in, urging her with his eyes. You're doing the right thing. If you can provide proof, we can take this further. Trust us. As the undercurrents of fear met the rising wave of courage in the room, Clara's heart soared and sank at the same time. They stood on the brink of a storm, and Clara knew, deep down, that once they crossed this threshold, there would be no turning back. With an unyielding resolve, Jacqueline nodded. I will. As she spoke, a sense of hope ignited in Clara's chest. But just as the air started to buzz with promise, a loud siren blared outside, slicing through the tension and sending a jolt through everyone in the room. It echoed the urgency of the moment. What now? Clara whispered, feeling the uneasy shift as panic rippled among the guests. Was this yet another consequence of their actions? Or the beginning of what they had longed for, real change? The detective's expression shifted to one of determination. Stay here. I'll find out what's happening. But as he turned to leave, a figure stepped into the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light of the street. They stood firm, arms crossed with an air of authority that set Clara's heart racing once again. Who was this new disruptor? And would they add to their complications or finally help bring the truth into the light? The figure in the doorway shifted, revealed in the harsh light. Clara's heart skipped. It was Officer Lyle, the police officer who had visited the estate a few weeks prior. His presence brought with it an urgency that made the air thick. Everyone stay calm, he said, his voice firm yet commanding. There's been a report of domestic disturbance in the area. We need to ask a few questions. The guests tensed, but Clara, emboldened by Jacqueline's bravery, felt a spark of trust in the officer. Could he be their ally in this twisted game? Officer Lyle. Harper called out, stepping forward. You need to talk to Jacqueline. She has information about the fund's missing money, and it all leads back to Mr. Thompson. Clara watched as the officer's gaze darted between Harper, Jacqueline, and Mr. Thompson. The tension in the room was palpable, a collective heartbeat thundering in the silence. Mr. Thompson's cocky demeanor had evaporated, replaced by a look of desperation mingled with anger. You'll find no truth here, officer, he blustered. This is just a woman looking to create chaos. She is a nobody in this household. Mr. Thompson, Lyle replied, his tone balancing authority with professionalism. Misinformation can lead us down a dangerous path. If you don't believe her, I suggest you let her speak. With that, Lyle gestured for Jacqueline to step forward. Clara felt her heart racing. This was at the pivotal moment they had all been waiting for. Jacqueline, Lyle said, his eyes urging her onward. What do you know? I've seen things, Jacqueline stammered, swallowing hard but finding her strength. I've found invoices, payments that don't make sense. I know I seem like just a housekeeper, but I can't stand by while things go wrong. Mr. Thompson's face contorted. You'll regret this. You have no idea what you're risking, he warned, but his voice trembled slightly. Clara clenched Jake's hand tighter. The stakes were escalating. Could Mr. Thompson really retaliate against a housekeeper, or was he grasping at straws because his empire was crumbling? Jacqueline, please continue, Detective Harper pushed, his intensity urging her to reveal the truth. Jacqueline squared her shoulders, the fire of defiance flickering in her eyes. There were certain transactions to people who were never hired. I don't know all the details, but I saw the checks and I remember the names. As she spoke, murmurs rippled through the crowd, whispers of shock and disbelief. Clara felt the tide shifting once more, away from oppression and into awakening. Their fears had gathered in the room, and now, they were finding their strength. Enough! Thompson shouted, his voice rising in pitch, shaking the atmosphere. You can't prove any of this. I can, Jacqueline replied, unwavering. I might be a housekeeper, but I believe in what's right. And I will not let you silence me. The siren outside shrieked again, growing louder, punctuating her resolve. Suddenly, it felt as if the universe itself was standing witness to this confrontation. Jacqueline glanced back toward Clara, a silent plea for support. Clara nodded, her heart pounding as she felt the weight of collective eyes on her. Everyone was in this fight together now, but just as hope began to spread its wings in the room, a sudden crash echoed from outside. Glass shattered. There was shouting. Clara's heart raced. What could possibly happen now? Had they drawn too much attention too soon? Stay here. Officer Lyle commanded, already moving toward the door. Clara's chest tightened with anxiety. What waited outside? What would they face next? As the officer disappeared into the doorway, she exchanged glances with Jake and the others. This was just the beginning, and the truth was out there, swirling on the edge of chaos. Would they be able to claim their victory, or were they only just stepping into a larger battle? Clara held her breath, the tension creeping back in, saturating the air. She could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her chest. Had they stirred the hornet's nest? Outside, shouts and more crashes erupted, drumming like thunder against the walls of the grand estate. Shouldn't we go after him? Jake's whisper barely reached her. His brow furrowed in worry. Lyle's trained for this, Clara replied, her voice steadying just a fraction. But what if there's trouble? We can't just wait. The room was filling up with murmurs now. Friends turned to friends, and worry coated each face like a heavy fog. Clara saw Harper pacing, his hands clenched. Everyone felt the swell of emotions, fear and anticipation, mingling with a spark of hope. Suddenly, Officer Lyle reappeared, his expression grave. Behind him, the chaotic sounds transformed into a surge of voices and urgent commotion flooded into the room. There's a situation outside, Lyle said, his eyes scanning the crowd for troublemakers. We need to evacuate. His words struck terror in Clara's heart. The dream of uncovering the truth was slipping from their grasp, and they could lose everything they had fought for. But what about Jacqueline? She blurted out. She knows we'll find her. Right now, we need to get to safety. Lyle demanded, his voice booming with urgency. Panic erupted, legs moving hesitant yet frantic. Clara grabbed Jake's hand, their fingers interlocking like a lifeline. They edged toward the door while trying to maintain calm and prevent chaos. But just as they reached the entrance, a chilling scream sliced through the air. Help! Let go of me! Jacqueline's voice rang out, sudden and terrified, breaking through the chaotic rush. Clara's heart sank. That was her friend, her ally caught in the fury outside. Jacqueline! Clara shouted, tearing away from Jake's grasp. She didn't think, she just felt the need to rescue. Clara, no! Jake called, but she was already running. Spurred by fear and that deep-rooted bond of solidarity, she burst through the door, overwhelmed by the brightness of the night. Outside, the lawn was a flurry of shadows and confusion. Officers were moving about frantically, and a small crowd of onlookers had gathered, craning their necks to see what was happening. Where is Jacqueline? She called out, catching sight of a struggle near some bushes. A large figure was wrestling with her, while Jacqueline squirmed desperately. Clara's heart raced. Get your hands off her! Clara shouted, lunging forward. The person holding Jacqueline turned a familiar face, but one Clara had only glimpsed in passing moments, Thompson's brood of a security guard. The man sneered, his grip tightening around Jacqueline's arms. You shouldn't have opened your mouth, lady. He growled, and Clara's blood boiled. Let her go. She's telling the truth. Clara stepped closer, adrenaline surging through her. Then, she remembered something, a last desperate attempt to break the hold on her friend. You're going to regret this. The moment the police find out, the brute laughed, the sound cold and mocking. They're on my side. Clara's breath hitched. She felt exposed, vulnerable as fear washed over her again. Was she too late to save her friend? Just then, a figure loomed over them, a flash of uniform. Officer Lyle charged toward them, a fierce determination in his eyes, and a radio crackling in his hand. "Back off. Now." In that moment, everything hung in the balance. Clara's heart thudded relentlessly, waiting for the scales to tip. Would they finally learn the truth, or was it slipping away? The sound of footsteps hurried towards them from the shadows. Who else was coming? Clarifying lines were being drawn, and Clara was about to find out just how deep the deception ran. Clara's pulse quickened as she watched Officer Lyle approach, the tension thickening like storm clouds. "Step away from her," he commanded, his voice slicing through the uproar, firm and steady. The security guard hesitated, his sneer faltering for a heartbeat. But then he tightened his grip on Jacqueline, the muscle in his jaw flexing. "She's in over her head. This doesn't concern you, cop." Before Lyle could respond, the crowd swelled, pulling back to form a semicircle around them. Fear and anticipation painted the faces of onlookers, mingling with flashes of unease. Clara caught a glimpse of Jake, worry etched across his features, as he watched helplessly from the sidelines. "Let her go." Clara shouted again, her voice stronger now, igniting a spark of hope. The crowd murmured, sensing the stakes were rising, the energy shifting like a live wire. Officer Lyle inched closer, eyes locked on the brute. "Let her go," he repeated, this time with a low, dangerous growl. "Or you'll be sorry." Lyle's resolve breathed life into Clara, but the guard seemed unfazed. "Try me," he spat. His hands clenched tighter around Jacqueline's arms, who was now pale, her eyes wide with fear. "Come on, Lyle," Clara urged, glancing at Jacqueline. "We have to do something." Then, just as tension peaked, the unmistakable sound of sirens began to wail in the distance, cutting through the murmurs and fear. The guard's grip slackened for just a moment, uncertainty flickering across his face. Clara recognized that window and lunged forward, yelling now. With swift emotion, Officer Lyle closed the distance and grabbed the guard's shoulder, spinning him around. "I said back off." Lyle didn't let go. He yanked hard and the guard stumbled, the sudden force breaking his hold on Jacqueline. She fell free, gasping, and Clara rushed forward, wrapping her arms around her friend. "You're okay," Clara whispered, her heart pounding with relief, but it was short-lived. The guard, reeling from Lyle's grip, charged toward them with a savage grunt, but before he could reach them, Lyle pushed back, drawing his weapon. Clara felt the crowd draw a collective breath. "Step back, all of you." Lyle barked, his voice firm, commanding. The crowd parted, fear knitting them together even as they kept their eyes riveted on the unfolding chaos. "Cops are just as corrupt." The guard shouted, desperation skying in his tone. "No one's gonna believe you." Before Lyle could respond, another voice broke through, steady and sharp. "You'll regret that." It was Harper, stepping forward, his expression fierce. Clara's heart swelled. She had forgotten about his presence, the quiet strength he often brought. "This isn't over," the guard hissed, backing away slowly, knowing he was outmanned now. His eyes darted, searching for escape. Relief washed over Clara as the guard finally turned, retreating into the shadows of the night. But the moment of victory felt fragile, a fleeting brightness in the overwhelming dark. She turned to Lyle and Jacqueline, both breathing heavy. "What now?" Jake asked, breaking the silence, tension still thick around them. "Now, we find out what's really happening," Clara replied, her voice steadying. Jacqueline nodded, and in that moment, Clara understood that their connection went deeper than fear. It was rooted in a resolve stronger than any threat. A new sound punctured the air, a cacophony of shouting, more sirens, more chaos drawing near. Clara exchanged glances with Lyle, then looked back to the crowd. "Let us go," Lyle urged, starting to move back toward the estate. "We need to gather everyone and discuss this." But as Clara followed, her heart sank again. The truth was still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting to be fully uncovered. What had they really stumbled into? And who was still behind this mask of deception? With each step, uncertainty gripped her tighter. They had taken one leap forward but were still standing on the edge of a much deeper abyss. Little did they know, the hardest battles were yet to come. What would the truth reveal? And would they be ready for it? Clara stood in the dim light of the estate, her heart racing. The air was thick with fear, but something deeper simmered beneath the chaos, a surge of courage that bound them all together. Jacqueline, still shaken but resolute, stood beside her. All around, uncertain whispers faded into a comfortable silence as eyes turned toward the trio. "I can't believe we just confronted him," Clara murmured, her breath still shaky. "But now we need to regroup. We have to get our stories straight." Judith moved closer, squeezing Jacqueline's shoulder in a show of solidarity. "We've all seen something wrong. We can't let Thompson intimidate us anymore." The gathered crowd, feeling the shared sense of empowerment, began voicing their own stories. Each testimony unveiled another layer of the hidden reality, late payments that had never been addressed, long hours that went unacknowledged, and promises made but broken. Lyle nodded at each revelation, his presence assuring the crowd they wouldn't face this battle alone. "You'll be protected. This isn't just momentary fame, this is about digging deep, truly uncovering the depths of what has been happening." Clara's resolve bubbled as she scanned the faces around her. What began as quiet whispers morphed into a unified chorus, rising like phoenixes from the ashes of their shared frustrations. A flame flickered in her chest, and she felt the heat of possibility. "Let us not just talk about this," she called out, her voice unwavering. "Let us take action. We need to bring this to the forefront." The momentum grew, a wave of affirmation rolling through the crowd. Jacqueline took a deep breath, her newfound confidence shimmering in the soft light. "If we stand together, we'll be unstoppable." As they shared their collective narrative, Clara suddenly felt immense pride for her children watching from a distance. Mia and Jake gazed at her with wide eyes, holding onto each other, reflecting both fear and hope. Clara stepped toward them, her heart radiating warmth. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" Jake's voice quivered, breaking through the sea of resolve. She bent down to meet his gaze, her heart melting. "Yes, honey. We are going to be more than okay. We're finding our voices, and that's powerful." Just then, the night air crackled with excitement as the sirens grew closer. Lyle stepped forward with purpose, indicating the path for the officers who were now entering the scene. "We need to speak with each of you individually about what transpired. This is serious." Bravery surged through Clara, intertwining with joy. They were no longer confined by fear. They stood for truth, ready to illuminate darkness. With the detective leading the way, each employee shared their experiences within the safe space of camaraderie. Clara listened intently, realizing they were not alone. They all played roles in this unfolding narrative, woven tightly together like fabric in a tapestry. Hours passed with tales of hope and acknowledgment transforming the air, creating a sense of belonging. As the sun began to rise, casting golden rays over the estate, Clara felt a breath of relief. She turned to her friends, her voice imbued with strength. "This isn't the end. It's just the beginning. We will demand change and acknowledgment. Together." An overwhelming cheer erupted, echoing through the estate as dawn washed over them like a gentle embrace. They were no longer ghosts in the shadows, they were a collective force. Clara clasped Jacqueline's hand, a tear slipping down her cheek, reflecting years of struggle now leading to a brighter tomorrow. "Celebrate our strength. Be proud," Judith said, and they all nodded in agreement, hearts full. This moment held weight, depth, and clarity. They had risen together from the wreckage of the night, armed with truth. They would challenge the world that had so often overlooked them, rising against adversity like heroes fashioned from the fired forge of life. With newfound spirits, they strode forward, each step resonating with the promise of brighter days. The new dawn marked the beginning of their journey toward genuine change. Do not miss your chance to witness our next incredible story. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, because your support truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait not even one more second to share.